Growing up, we were a faithful family. We went to Mass on Sundays, we prayed before meals, and aside from that, my prayer life wasn't much as a little kid. I went to CCD, learned a little bit about my faith there, but where my vocation story really starts to take off is when I went to junior high school. It is the first time I went to a Catholic school since kindergarten. I was at the cathedral school for 7th grade. And it was at that time that I started to learn even more and more about my faith. And it's something that I started to realize and recognize as something beautiful, as something that is true and good, and something to get excited about. As I continued through all my classes, I, of course, found myself falling more and more in love with my faith. And it was really in all of this that I started to feel the call. I still remember Monsignor Richter used to send out videos from the vocations office advocating for vocations to the priesthood. And at this time I would think to myself, I might be called to be a priest, but probably not. I was a boy at the time, and like all other boys, I wanted to get married. I was interested in women. I want a family. Yeah, being celibate, that's not for me. Plus at that time I thought all priests had to study in Rome, and I thought I had to learn Italian, and I thought there's no way I can learn a foreign language, so priesthood is not for me. The next stage of my vocation story comes when I entered into high school. I went to St. Mary's Central High School here in Bismarck, and that's where I started to encounter even more men who were excited about their faith. As I was going through high school, I started to notice, particularly when I was in Monsignor Shea's class, I noticed that I really liked his attention in particular, as opposed to my other professors. I really didn't know what it was about him, but I liked getting the priest's attention and I liked his compliments in his class. So I entered into my senior year, and it was at that point that I decided to take the class, A Catholic Disciple. That class was a very big turning point in my vocation story. During that class, we sat in with Father Josh Waltz, who was, at that point, a newly ordained priest at his first assignment, and he had us reading Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis. And we had us writing 2-page papers every week. We were praying in the chapel every Monday, and then just discussing the whole week. He would often tell us stories about when he was a seminarian and as a young priest. And as a young man, I could often relate to that. I could see myself doing the things that he was doing. I would just stay up for hours at night thinking about all these different aspects of the priesthood and thinking to myself, I think I could be doing this. I think I might have to enter the seminary. This is a real possibility for me. The other beautiful part of that class was he introduced us into a life of prayer. And so getting used to prayer was also a very big part in my discernment, as it taught me the importance of being alone with Christ in the Eucharist. And I still remember many times when I was in that chapel at St. Mary's, praying in front of our Lord, I could almost hear him saying, "Be a priest." Yet I would almost always, in fact always, finish the sentence for him and say, or a married man, or a single man, or a monk. Just make sure he got them all. As I continued through my discernment, the more and more I started to realize that just the first part of that sentence was actually his, and the remainder was me making it up. Where I really felt the call strongly was in a much more unlikely place, at least in my mind. It was just outside of Williston. Monsignor Richter had given me a phone call and invited me to the annual Seminarian gathering at a lake cabin on Lake Sakakawea. While I was there, I realized that seminarians are actually normal people. I had this conception that seminarians were kind of weirdos who can't get girlfriends. But I realized as I met these men and heard their vocation stories that couldn't be farther from the truth. And as I heard these stories, I found them relating to my own. And I realized, this is an authentic call, and I really truly believe that God is calling me to the seminary. So I entered the University of North Dakota for 1 year. I met many people there, some very close friends. But while I was there, I still knew that I wanted to go to the seminary, and I wanted to go soon. I had gone through many difficult points in my life, some challenges to the faith that I had never heard before, but that only made me stronger. And God really pulled me through that time in my life. So I continued through. Monsignor Richter had been in contact with me, and he got me the application and got me through the whole process, that long, arduous process of applying to any university, and I entered St. John Vianney College Seminary that next year. I really found that in the seminary, I became more of myself, and I became more free. And just entrusting my vocation to Christ and entrusting it to the church, I have found that to be such a beautiful, beautiful experience and such a beautiful vocation to live.